So imagine walking into a doctor's office. You see a fancy diploma framed on the wall. The medical instruments are perfectly arranged. And the person in the white coat is just, well, they're incredibly confident.
Right, you probably trust them immediately.
Exactly, you trust them. But then, later, you find out that this doctor just took a 16-hour weekend course.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the exam was entirely open book. And really, the only way to actually fail was by having a bad attitude.
You'd run out of the room. I mean, I would.
You'd be out the door.
Yeah.
Well, that exact scenario, that sort of illusion of professional authority, is playing out on gun ranges across Florida right now.
So welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are exploring a massive and honestly pretty unsettling gap between marketing and legal reality.
Yeah, specifically in the firearms training industry.
Exactly. We're looking at the USCCA, which stands for the United States Concealed Carry Association, and how their instructor certification program actually operates in Florida. It's just a phenomenal case study, because when you look closely at the situation, it really gets to the core of a much bigger issue, which is like, how do we as a society define actual legal authority versus just a really good marketing campaign?
Yeah, because those two things are often definitely not the same.
Not at all.
And to guide you through this, we've pulled together a really fascinating stack of materials for you. We're drawing from an article titled Borrowed Badges by Herfel over at the Valortec blog.
Great piece.
Yeah, and we're pairing that with a companion essay by J.D. Mercer, plus a transcription of a piece called the Two-Day Instructor Mel. But before we get into the mechanics of all this, I want to make something crystal clear up front.
Very important point here.
Yeah. Firearms and Second Amendment rights are highly politically charged topics. Our mission today is strictly impartial. We are not here to take a side, left or right. We are simply reporting the arguments and the structural realities laid out in this material.
Right, to help you understand a very intense debate over commercial training standards and really consumer protection.
Exactly.
And that is a vital distinction to make. The authors of these pieces make a very deliberate effort to separate the politics of gun ownership from the cold, hard commercial realities of the training industry.
Yeah, the focus here is entirely on industry mechanics, liability, and making sure that you, as a consumer, actually get what you are paying for.
Precisely.
So let's start at the foundation, which is the law itself. Because the fundamental argument here is that there is a whole class of people walking American gun ranges right now wearing these official-looking instructor polos who, in the eyes of the law, simply do not exist as instructors.
Right. To understand how a weekend certificate operates in the real world, we really first have to look at what the state of Florida actually requires.
Okay, let's get into it.
So if you look at Florida's self-defense laws specifically, the section that dictates exactly how a citizen proves they are competent with a firearm to get a concealed weapon license in the state is incredibly specific.
I mean, I would imagine a state has to be pretty rigid, right, when it comes to certifying who can teach lethal force.
Yeah.
Who does this state actually recognize?
Well, the state recognizes three main pathways. First, it explicitly names the National Rifle Association, or the NRA.
Okay, that's suspected.
Right. Then it names instructors who are certified through recognized state or law enforcement pathways, like the Criminal Justice Standards and Training Commission.
Got it.
And finally, it names the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. Those are the legally recognized avenues to prove competence. But, and here's what is truly fascinating, the USCCA is never mentioned.
Wait, not a single time?
Not once. Not in that specific section of the statute, and not anywhere in the entire chapter governing firearms.
That's wild.
Yeah, and that silence is the entire story. You can think of this as a legislative fence. The state legislature drew a strict, hard boundary around exactly who has the legal authority to say, yes, this citizen is competent to carry a deadly weapon.
And the USCCA is just outside that fence.
Exactly. They are standing on the outside. A USCCA credential standing entirely on its own satisfies absolutely nothing in that Florida statute.
Okay, I have to push pause right there. Because if the law doesn't recognize them, how on earth are these classes happening all over the state?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right. Because if I take a USCCA class and try to hand that certificate to the state for my concealed carry paperwork, it sounds like it should be rejected.
Ugh.
So they have to be piggybacking on someone else's authority, right?
That is precisely what is happening. And it brings us to what the sources call the quiet con at the center of this industry. The authority is entirely borrowed.
Borrowed authority. How does that work in practice?
Well, a USCCA instructor will realize their badge doesn't have legal weight in Florida, so they will go out and get a separate, legally recognized credential, usually an NRA certification.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And they use that NRA certificate to make the state paperwork legally valid. But, and this is key, they market themselves, brand their classroom, and advertise their classes entirely under the USCCA banner.
Okay, let me unpack this.
Well,
It's like putting a Ferrari hood ornament on a golf cart and telling everyone it's a race car.
That is a great analogy.
Right. The USCCA logo is just the hood ornament. The NRA certification is the actual engine doing the work and making it street legal. I think one of the authors literally calls this credential laundering.
Credential laundering is the perfect term for it. Just walk through it from the perspective of a brand new student, you know.
Yeah.
You walk into a class, you see the heavy branding everywhere. The instructor is in a branded polo shirt, there are slick logos on the slideshow. You naturally assume that the brand plastered everywhere is the legal qualification.
Because why wouldn't you?
Exactly. You have no idea that the brand is just the wrapping paper, and the legal weight is being borrowed from an entirely different organization. And the marketplace actively rewards this confusion because, to the untrained eye, the heavy branding looks incredibly professional.
Well, if the logo itself doesn't hold independent legal weight in Florida, that makes me wonder what it actually takes to get one. Let's look at the curriculum itself.
Let's do it.
Because if I want to become a, nationally certified firearms instructor through this specific program, what am I actually doing?
The contrast here between the public perception of what a firearms instructor should be and the reality of this specific certification process is pretty stark. I mean, it is engineered for speed.
Speed is right. To get this title, based on the sources, you are looking at a 16-hour, 2-day weekend class.
Just one weekend.
One single weekend. And it costs roughly $597.
Wow.
Yeah, that breaks down to a $250 fee for an e-learning module and a toolkit, plus whatever the host range charges, which usually brings it to around $600.
Sometimes a bit more, depending on the range.
Right, so you do your e-learning at home, you show up on Saturday morning, and by Sunday evening, you are handed the title of instructor.
And we really have to look closely at the qualifying standard for that weekend. Like, how are they testing these candidates? What is the barrier to entry?
This is the part that genuinely shocks me. According to a published packet from one of the host academies, the written exam to become an instructor is open book and open notes.
Open book. For an instructor certification dealing with the application of lethal force.
Yes, you are allowed to look up the answers while you take the test. It's crazy, and it gets wilder. The major pass-fail criterion for the entire weekend isn't based on a deep understanding of self-defense law.
What is it based on?
It's simply the candidate's attitude.
Attitude.
Yeah, the evaluators are literally just checking whether the person will represent the organization in a friendly, appropriate manner. It's not based on their diagnostic ability to fix a student's dangerous grip on a handgun. It's about having a good attitude.
Unbelievable. And, we also have to consider the ongoing requirements.
Right, like after the class.
Yeah. Once someone acquires this badge on Sunday evening, what does it take to keep it? In most high-stakes professions, maintaining a credential requires continuing education and oversight.
Yeah, you'd think they'd have to recertify or something.
Here, the requirements are virtually non-existent. You don't even need to hold a concealed carry license yourself to become an instructor.
Wait, really?
Really, there is no supervised apprenticeship where you teach under the watchful eye of a master instructor. There is no ongoing evaluation of your technique. To keep the credential alive, the primary mandate is simply that you have to teach 20 students a year.
Which is why the material forcefully refers to this as an assembly line and a mill.
Exactly. I mean, if you look at real professional formation in any high-stakes field, whether that's aviation, medicine, or elite military training, it requires a high risk of failure.
Right, they wash people out.
Yes. It requires immense technical depth, prolonged mentorship, and supervised repetition. An academy has to be willing to fail the candidates who lack emotional control, safety judgment, or just deep subject matter knowledge.
Makes total sense.
But this 2-day format isn't designed to screen out bad teachers. It is an assembly line engineered for maximum throughput. It's built to process dabblers, hobbyists, and side hustlers with the absolute least amount of friction possible.
But, Okay, let me push back on that for a second.
Sure.
Isn't a low barrier to entry kind of a good thing if the goal is getting more people educated? We constantly hear about the importance of basic safety training, right?
Right.
So if making the test open book and focusing on a friendly attitude gets more friendly instructors out there teaching the absolute basics to beginners, why is that such a dangerous red flag?
Well, that is a very common defense of the model, but it fundamentally misunderstands the nature of the subject matter. Teaching lethal force isn't like teaching someone how to knit.
Fair point.
It requires an incredible amount of maturity under pressure and diagnostic skill. Those are things you simply cannot evaluate in an open book test. In a real-world self-defense scenario, a student cannot call a timeout to check their notes, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
Therefore, the person training them must have internalized the safety protocols and legal boundaries so deeply that they can impart them under stress.
So you're saying the instructor needs to be stress tested so the student can be safe.
Exactly. A real instructor development process has to be demanding. It has to ensure that the person standing in front of armed citizens has the professional judgment to tell them how to handle life and death decisions responsibly.
Right.
When you lower the bar to just like checking attendance, ensuring the check cleared, and verifying a good attitude, you aren't creating educators, you're creating a hazard.
That's a heavy way to put it.
But it's true. You are mass-producing people who have barely mastered the material themselves and then sending them out into the community to shape the safety practices of others.
Which brings up really the most fascinating question of this entire deep dive. If this system isn't designed to create master educators, what is it actually designed to do?
That is the real question.
Right. Why build an assembly line that practically guarantees everyone passes? And this is where the curtain really gets pulled back on the underlying business model.
Yeah, to understand the mechanics of this curriculum, you have to follow the money.
Always.
Always. In their own public materials and FAQs, the USCCA admits that it is powered by Delta Defense, LLC.
I saw that in the sources. Delta Defense is the engine behind the brand. And what exactly does Delta Defense do?
Delta Defense identifies itself as a licensed insurance agency operating in all 50 states and the District of Columbia.
So the core product of this entire organization isn't actually education.
Nope.
It's not training. The core product is self-defense liability insurance.
Precisely. It is sold through tiered memberships that cost anywhere from $39 to $59 a month, and those are underwritten by Universal Fire and Casualty Insurance Company.
I realized this while reading the breakdown, and it completely reframed everything for me. This isn't an academy.
What is it?
It is essentially a multi-level marketing structure.
Yeah.
But instead of recruiting people to sell dietary supplements or essential oils, the classroom itself is the storefront. The badge they hand out on Sunday evening is just a sales license. And the instructor is basically a distribution node for an insurance funnel.
The financial incentives prove your point perfectly. Instructors are offered a massive financial incentive to push these memberships to their students.
How much are we talking?
Well, one host academy openly advertises that its certified instructors earn a 45% commission on any students they refer to join the organization.
A 45% commission.
Yeah.
Just for getting a student to sign up for the insurance.
Yes, and when you realize the instructor gets a cut of the insurance subscriptions they funnel upstream, the entire architecture of the two-day weekend makes perfect sense.
Yeah, because you want as many salespeople as possible.
Exactly. From an insurance underwriter's perspective, high failure rates in an instructor class are bad for business. If you fail an instructor candidate because their safety fundamentals are weak, you just fired a future salesman.
Wow.
You lost a distribution node for your primary insurance product?
That is the ultimate aha moment right there. The curriculum isn't broken. It's functioning exactly as a multi-level sales funnel is supposed to function.
Exactly. While many of the individual instructors might be perfectly sincere people who genuinely care about safety.
Right. We're not saying they're all bad people.
Not at all. But the commercial machine above them is built entirely for customer acquisition, not student protection. A sales ecosystem is built around reach, conversion, branding, and repeatability.
And an educational ecosystem is built around what? Strict failure standards, deep accountability, and protecting the end user.
Yes. Those are two completely different paradigms. One protects the student, the other protects the sales pipeline.
That distinction changes everything. And it brings us to the real-world consequences of this model. Because we aren't just talking about people wasting $600 on a vanity certificate.
No, the stakes are much higher.
Right. We are talking about the physical and legal stakes when this marketing model collides with modern social media and changing state laws.
The social media aspect is crucial here because the algorithm has actually accelerated and hidden this problem.
How so?
Well, in the past, authority in the firearms world was generally established through reputation, word of mouth, and proven actual competence over a long period of time.
You had to actually be good for a long time.
Yeah, right. Today, a person can manufacture authority almost overnight through content creation.
Yet the algorithm absolutely rewards attention over competence. Like if you have a clean camera angle, a dramatic holster draw, maybe a tactical beard.
Always the tactical beard.
Always. And if you can repeat a few aggressive-sounding talking points, suddenly you have tens of thousands of followers. And the public looks at that and thinks, wow, this person is an expert.
But the algorithm does not check Florida statutes.
Right.
It does not verify whether the person actually understands use of force law, human biomechanics, or range safety. A beginner who is looking for training literally cannot tell the difference between extreme internet confidence and actual legal authority.
And that's dangerous.
It is. When a person with a massive following is wrong about the law or wrong about safety, they are wrong at scale, infecting thousands of people with bad information.
But wait, let me play devil's advocate here regarding the law.
Okay, go for it.
Florida passed permitless carry on July 1st, 2023. This means a citizen no longer strictly needs a license from the state to carry a concealed weapon. Doesn't that make this whole debate about state-recognized training credentials kind of moot? Like, if the state doesn't require a permit, who cares who the instructor is?
It is a very common assumption. But looking at the legal reality, the exact opposite is true. Permitless carry did not magically make bad instructors competent. And it certainly didn't erase the concealed weapon license system.
Wait, people still get the license?
Oh, absolutely. People
Yeah.
still want and need that license for reciprocity. Reciprocity simply means that when you travel to another state, like Georgia or Texas, they legally recognize your Florida permit and allow you to carry there.
Oh.
People also need the license for certain employment requirements or just to have solid legal documentation. Because of that, the legal training pathway we talked about earlier remains absolutely identical. The legislature didn't change a single word regarding who is authorized to teach.
So the state requirement is still sitting right there for anyone who wants the actual paperwork.
Yes. But, more importantly, permitless carry actually shifted the burden of responsibility and made it much heavier.
How do you mean?
When a government reduces the barriers to carrying a weapon, the legal and moral responsibility lands much harder on the individual citizen, and by extension, on the instructor who claims to be preparing them.
Okay, yeah. Bad instruction is essentially like giving someone a faulty compass right before they walk into a minefield. They feel completely confident right up until the moment of disaster.
That's exactly it.
I mean, the downside of a bad golf coach is a slice off the tee.
Mm-hmm.
The downside of a bad firearms instructor is a negligent discharge, meaning the gun fires when it absolutely wasn't supposed to because of terrible trigger discipline. Or it's a defensible self-defense scenario that turns into a prosecutable murder charge because the instructor peddled internet folklore as actual law.
That is what J.D. Mercer's essay refers to as the brutal reality of liability. Liability doesn't disappear just because the weekend class is over and everyone went home happy.
Right.
It waits. It waits for a bad shooting. It waits for a student to make a catastrophic error and tell the responding police officers, well, my instructor told me I could do this.
And when that happens, the illusion completely shatters.
It shatters in the deposition room. The plaintiff's attorney in a civil suit or the criminal prosecutor is going to sit that instructor down under oath. And I assure you, they are not going to ask about their Instagram follower count or how cool their logo is.
No, they're going to go after the credentials.
Exactly. They're going to ask, what legal authority did your certification actually carry in the state of Florida? They will ask, how many supervised teaching hours did you complete before you certified the student? What state agency licensed you to teach the use of lethal force?
So essentially, they're going to be cross-examined on professional standards they were never actually taught in their two-day class.
Precisely. At that moment, the slick logo will not save them. The open book weekend certificate will not save them. The court is only going to care about actual authority, legal documentation, and whether the instructor's conduct created a foreseeable risk that got someone hurt or killed.
Man. So we have a legally unrecognized badge, an open book assembly line, and an insurance funnel masquerading as an academy. How do the authors of these materials believe we should fix this borrowed badges problem?
Well, the authors are very clear on the solution, and it boils down to treating this profession with the seriousness of an actual profession. They argue for regulating the commercial act of firearms instruction the exact same way Florida regulates other high-stakes or even medium-stakes jobs.
I remember reading this part in the sources. They compared it to barbers, electricians, and security officers.
Right. Think about it. Florida requires a Class G license for armed security officers, which comes with stringent state-mandated training, live fire qualifications, and continuous oversight. We heavily regulate the electrician who wires your house so it doesn't burn down while you sleep. We regulate the person who cuts your hair to ensure sanitation standards.
But for teaching lethal force.
But currently, the state allows a massive loophole where a private citizen can charge money to certify another citizen's competence with lethal force based entirely on an open book weekend class. The argument is that this commercial activity must be regulated.
Meaning real supervised teaching hours, closed book exams on state law and biomechanical safety, and a disciplinary body that can actually revoke a bad instructor's credential if they are teaching dangerous tactics.
Exactly. And they also call on the industry itself to self-correct. Ranges and gun shops need to stop marketing private, insurance-branded credentials as if they hold state authority.
Right.
If an instructor is relying on an NRA certification to make their class legal, they need to advertise it clearly as an NRA class, not hide behind the USCCA wrapping paper. Transparency has to be the standard.
And the material addresses the political elephant in the room head on. Because inevitably, someone will hear the word regulation and say, well, more regulation infringes on the Second Amendment.
Oh, absolutely. People will say that.
But the argument made here is that demanding competent, legally recognized instructors does not infringe on gun rights in any way whatsoever. In fact, it protects gun owners from fraud, from negligent training, and from reckless legal advice.
Exactly.
A community that prides itself on personal responsibility should logically be the absolute first to demand that its teachers are actually qualified to teach.
It fundamentally comes down to consumer protection in a commercial transaction. Nothing more, nothing less. If you pay for a service that claims to prepare you for the worst day of your life, you deserve the actual legal and tactical reality, not just a marketing funnel.
Absolutely. And, even if you never plan to set foot on a gun range or carry a firearm, the mechanics of this story matter to you. Because whether you are looking for training in a high-stakes physical skill, seeking financial advice, or hiring a contractor, the lesson is universal. You have to ask what is powering the authority. You have to look past the brand, past the beautifully designed website, past the charismatic Instagram videos, and ask for the actual legal credential.
Don't mistake the wrapping paper for the engine.
Right.
It really is a masterclass in modern marketing and the blind spots in our legal system. And I think it leaves us with a critical question to consider going forward. If a private market can so easily manufacture the illusion of authority out of a 16-hour weekend class and a slick logo, what other high-stakes industries in our daily lives are currently relying on that exact same illusion of competence?
That is definitely something to think about the next time you look at a diploma on the wall. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.